Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. Today is Wednesday, November the 10th, and I am here to discuss an incredibly fired up, psyched up, couldn't be more excited about a 13-game slate. And that's right in my wheelhouse. The bigger the slate, the better. I know most people whine and cry that anything over that 7 and 9 or whatever is difficult. But this is right in my wheelhouse. So we're not going to waste time today. We have 13 games to get through. I've got some extra coffee here, so I'm ready to roll. By the way, I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach. And just as you can see, I'm a little exuberant about this slate today. And one thing I'll say before we get started, there are some serious price differences on the three sites, DraftKings, FanDuel, and Yahoo. So today is a day to price shop between them. There are some overpriced guys on some values on others. So there's a lot of information that you have to look at. Now, I'll be referring to DraftKings pricing on this podcast, so we don't, go 3 hours if we go through every single price on every site. So I'll be referring to DraftKings, but definitely take a look and shop around with the three different sites for the best pricing. If you want to join us at DFS Coach Talk, go to dfscoachtalk.com. We're going to be doing all this work today with 26 teams playing. We're really going to be digging in, looking through prices. And remember, we supply a coach's clipboard, which is 5 highlighted players with several other options to fill in your roster, full cash and GPP lineups on FanDuel and Yahoo. So we are the place to give a try to. We'd love to have you test us out. Wednesday is always an awesome day to join. If you do the 3-day $10 pass or the 5-day 19, you're good to go, because the 5-day will get you through the weekend. You get all of our golf lineups, which we'll do tonight on Wednesday night and Friday night for weekend only. And then, of course, all the Thursday night football and Sunday night crazy football day, and basketball every day within that time frame. So come and join us. We'd love to have you. And I'm going to fire through all these games. I'm not going to do any breaks in between. Our man Tyler Pitzer will timestamp these so you can check out each game as your day goes. But I wanted to get this out well before lunch so that everybody has a chance to listen in. If you have to listen to it in segments, whatever, just important to be up to speed on what's going on and what the card is looking like, so you don't have to try to jam something in after work. All right, my friends, this is going to be fun. 13 games. Last power sip of coffee, and here we go. First game, 7 p.m. Eastern. It is the Brooklyn Nets at the Orlando Magic. Brooklyn is favored by 9. Over-under is only 210. As you see, a lot of the over-unders are coming down with less scoring games with the new rules. We have an applied total for Brooklyn of 109.5, Orlando 100.5. And then as far as their records, Brooklyn comes in at 7-4. The Magic are 3-8. Injuries for Brooklyn: Claxton out, Kyrie Irving out. For Orlando, MCW, Fultz, Isaac, and Moore all remain out. So as far as that goes, let's take a look also at the pace of play in this game. Definitely two teams that get up and down the floor, both in the upper half in the league. Brooklyn is 13th, and Orlando, they're 19th. So between the two, they're pretty much level. Middle of the pack. That's why the 210 number. As far as defensive efficiency, Brooklyn is 8th, which is surprising. They have played definitely way better defense than anybody expected. And Orlando, not as much, 24th. So as we look at pricing here and a couple of possibilities, your two big boys for Brooklyn are still there. One or the other playable. I wouldn't play both. But you have Harden at 10-6 and Durant at 10-9. So definitely both possibilities. On a 13-game slate, I don't know if you have to gamble on guys like Bruce Brown, Joe Harris, Blake Griffin. They're all 4K, 4.4, and 4.1, so you can get them cheap, but they're going to use that bench. Mills, Aldridge, Bembry, Millsap, Johnson, all those guys could get minutes. So I think if you want to go on the Brooklyn side here early, you've got to make that big call, whether it's Harden or Durant, or just leave the game alone one way or the other. On the Orlando side, it's interesting. Cole Anthony, who's been my MVP so far, honestly, in DFS, he's been fantastic, but his price is up to 7.7. That gets me a little concerned, but I do really like his output. Wendell Carter Jr. at 7K is still fairly priced. He continues to do well game to game. And Mo Bamba at 6.8, I think that's a fair price. So I do like the two bigs, Carter and Bamba, and more than likely we'll go with one of those two at that low mid-range pricing. I think they're both good plays. Not interested in anybody off of the Orlando bench. I mean, if you on a GPP, if you want to take a flyer, Terrence Ross is always a good flyer guy because they call him the human torch, because when he's hot, he will make a bunch of shots. But on this kind of card, not in a cash hybrid build for me. All right, game 2, 7 p.m. Eastern. Washington Wizards at Cleveland Cavaliers. Washington favored by 3. It's only a 208.5 total. Washington 105.75 implied. Cleveland 102.75. Injury-wise, we've got Bertans, Bryant, and Hashimura remain out for Washington. Okoro may be back, so that changes a lot of things for Cleveland. He has not played this year, so he's back, and that mixes things up. But Kevin Love, Markkanen, and Sexton, who tore his meniscus, he'll be out for quite some time. Those guys are out. Amazing here. Washington 7-3 and Cleveland 7-4. Nobody really saw that coming. Not two teams playing that well at this point in the season, especially Cleveland, but Washington as well. Lot to talk about here, a lot to unwrap. The incredible resurgence of Ricky Rubio is just amazing. I mean, he has put up numbers like I've never seen him put up. And I talked about it early in the season, even the preseason coming in, to keep an eye out for him, because he was so incredible in the Olympics. He led the Olympics in scoring. He was first, Luka was second, and just came out of that playing phenomenal basketball. And at this point in his career, it's sort of shocking. But now with Sexton going down, how much more opportunities is he going to get? Definitely more opportunity, but it does get squished a little bit by Okoro returning, because even though Okoro's not a strong offensive player, he does demand some usage. So I think Rubio's going to be dead chalk at 5.2K, but I'm not 100% sold. I like him. I think I'm really impressed with his play. I think it's a good matchup, but I'm not going to have 100% of them, because I want to see how the mix of the usage with Okoro back, how that works. But at 5.2, he's going to get a lot of ownership, and it's deserved. He's played very well. I think Garland needs a little bit more look here also. He's only 6.6, and I've focused on him a lot when Sexton had missed games. And I think he's really a good player. He really is. And I have a tendency here to be looking more at Garland than Rubio. It gives you a little differentiation from what the field's doing. And I think Garland definitely has a higher ceiling, even though Rubio's been completely out of his mind. After that, need to see Okoro on the floor to see what he does. Don't want to dive down to a Dean Wade. I mean, you can always consider Evan Mobley at 7K or Jared Allen at 7.5. Not bad. I mean, Mobley had been more expensive than Allen most of the year. I like this matchup for Mobley. I really wouldn't have, even though this is a low number game, I'm going to consider Garland and Mobley in lineups. Probably not both. I'm going to really try to spread it out and maximize ceiling. But I think they're both in play along with Rubio. So I do like the Cleveland side here quite a bit. As far as Washington goes, I think it's bad news for Bradley Beal that Okoro's back, because I think he's going to defend him, and he is a plus defender. Dinwiddie, 6.6, fair. I mean, dead even is Garland. So I get that as a possibility. Just they have a tendency to definitely sub a little bit more. He's trying to get more, a little bit of time from Raul Neto and Aaron Holiday. So I'm not as excited about Dinwiddie. Don't want to pay up the 9.5 price for Beal in this low of a total game, and with Okoro defense coming back. And after that, as much as I like Montrezl Harrell, with Gafford back and starting, it's just very difficult to try to, play a center that's in a timeshare with 26 teams lacing them up. All right, game 3, 7:30 p.m. game. Detroit Pistons at Houston Rockets. Houston favored by 3.5, 211 over under. Implied total for Detroit, 103.75. For the Houston Rockets, 107.25. So what do we got here from an injury standpoint? First of all, the Pistons come in at 1-8, and Houston comes in at 1-9. So hip hooray, 2-17 combined. Somebody's got to win this game, so we'll see how that goes. The only injury listed for Detroit right now is Killian Hayes is probable. The big news for Houston is Kevin Porter Jr. is questionable, and that changes the dynamics if he sits. We know John Wall's sitting for the season until they can make a trade work for him. All right, let's stay on that Houston side, because if Porter doesn't play, and we have to watch that closely, I think Jalen Green becomes a strong play at 5.3. He's very fairly priced. Jayshawn Tate also will grab some of that usage at a cheap 5.1. Those are the two guys I think that benefit the most. And certainly you can consider spending up for Christian Wood at 9.2. Detroit's defense has not been stellar this year whatsoever. In fact, from a pace standpoint, by the way, Detroit's 21st, Houston is second. Defensive efficiency, Detroit 26, Houston 21. So you're going to get some scoring here. And you've got decent pace from Houston, which really does help the Detroit side. The fact that, they're playing all the way up to the second pace team. So, that 211 total could be a little deceiving, and these two records as well. I think these teams can still score. So, with that being said, I think from the Detroit side, you got to go back and look at Cade Cunningham at 5.2. We know he's got a big ceiling. There is some risk there, but I like his ceiling. Not quite going to go with Sadiq Bey, Jeremy Grant, Isaiah Stewart, Olynyk, that whole group. I think just don't have to dig that deep on a slate like this. But as far as Cunningham goes at that price, to come out of this game with like Cunningham and Green, I know you've got two rookies and a number 1 and number 2 pick, but they're cheap and their ceiling is there and they're going to be squaring off. I don't think that's the worst play. I really don't. If Porter plays, that probably shuffles Green out of the mix for me. But really, that's the way it works. What I want to do is just double back real quickly here. I just realized I did not go over the pace and defensive efficiency for Washington and Cleveland. I want this to be a complete podcast where you don't miss a thing. Washington, as far as pace, 20th, Cleveland 23rd. So again, that's not conducive to big DFS possessions and points. Defensively, they both played way better. That's why they're winning games. Washington's 9th in the league in defense. Who would have ever believed that? And Cleveland is 13th. So again, another reason to be careful on that game. All right, we're going to go to game 4. Nobody in those first games are on a back-to-back, but this is where we do have the first one. Toronto is on the first night of a back-to-back tonight. And Boston is favored by 2. It's Boston -2, a 208.5 over under. 103.25 for Toronto, 105.25 for Boston. As far as their records coming in, we've got Toronto at 6-5 and Boston at 4-6. And as far as pace goes, Toronto second to last in pace. So they have really played different with Lowry gone. They're slowing it down, utilizing Barnes, Anunoby, Siakam's back now. So not playing fast. Boston is not playing quick either. They're 24th in pace. Both teams in the top half defensively, Toronto 10th and Boston 12th. That definitely is a little bit scary. As far as injuries, Birch and Watanabe are out for Toronto. So you would think that would elevate a little bit of Achua, but since Siakam has come back, they've been playing small ball and playing Siakam at center, splitting with Achua. So that is an interesting situation. We know Jaylen Brown will be out for another week and a half, and Thomas is also out. So, not a big impact there other than the Jaylen Brown news. So that does affect things. We talked about it before. When Jaylen Brown sits, do you plug and play Jason Tatum? I mean, I'm very interested in him, but he's 10-4 in a game, the two teams that play super slow. So it's going to be hard to get there. He's going to have to shoot phenomenal percentages. His usage is terrific with Brown off the floor. I get it. I just don't know if I have the courage to pay over 10K for anybody on a slate like this. But as the day goes on, there will be more and more value open up. So we have to continue to look at that. From the Toronto side, Van Vliet at 7-6. Again, on a slow-paced game is tough. Gary Trent Jr.'s price just continues to stay lower, and he continues to contribute. He's only 5-6. And really becomes in play for me. I think Smart guards Van Vliet, and I think Trent gets up some shots. So he's in play. Scotty Barnes is a fair price at 6-9. He and OG Anunoby 7-9. Those were two guys I went to constantly. But now that Siakam's back, he led them in usage last season. He's getting back into the flow. He's 8-3. What that does for me, though, is I'm not quite there with Siakam yet at that price, and his usage pulling from Barnes and Anunoby especially creates a little bit of concern for me. So not as high on Toronto in this low of a pace game. Do have my eyeballs on Trent, though, as a value play. On the Boston side, again, the decision has to do with Tatum at 10-4. I played Al Horford the other night for some ungodly reason. I got sucked into Al Horford resurgence and he stunk. So I'm not paying 7-9 for him in this matchup that's slow. Robert Williams at 5-8, it's always tempting, but you never know if he's going to get enough minutes. He doesn't finish some of the games on the floor. They play Horford at the 5 sometimes. So this game just does not look like a game you have to mess that much with on a 13-game slate. Okay, we go to the next game. It's 7:30 Eastern. Milwaukee Bucks, New York Knicks. The Knicks are favored by 4, 215 over under. We do have Milwaukee on the second night of a back-to-back. So you never know what Coach Bud's going to do. That scares me on the second night of a back-to-back. So we have to keep a close eye there. Implied total for Milwaukee is 105.5. For the Knicks, it's 109.5. As far as pace goes in this game, Milwaukee 9th, Knicks, of course, playing slow at 25th. Defensive efficiency, though, is what gives me interest here. Everybody thinks Milwaukee and the Knicks, two awesome defensive teams, and I mentioned this the other day, too. Right now, they're sitting at 17th and 25th, respectively. So they are not defending well. I think the Knicks' off-season moves of getting rid of defensive guards like Bullock and picking up no defensive guards like Kemba has really shot them in the foot because defensively they're struggling, and that's why their record isn't as good. So this game does have some interest for me because of the fact that I think it'll be under-owned because people still have the stigma that these are two dead crunch defensive teams, and they're not this size of 10 games or whatever. That's enough for me to see what a new team is doing with their new makeup. As far as injuries, Brook Lopez is doubtful. He's been out quite a few games. I think he'll probably miss this one as well. And of course, we know DiVincenzo and Middleton remain out, which is huge for Milwaukee. That's why they're 5-6. Knicks at 7-4. They've got their bigs both toss up to play. Mitch Robinson twisted an ankle. Nerlens Noel, who I had played that game, and he was playing terrific. First of all, he hurt his back. He went out to the locker room, came back in. Then he got his knee rolled up on, and he was, so I don't know if either one of these guys play. If they both sit, you can play a punt center and Taj Gibson, or you can just take all of your, focus and put it on Julius Randle, because he'll grab tons more in the paint and smash. So definitely need news on that Knicks side on those guys that are questionable. So for me, it's real simple. If Robinson and my man Noel are out, then it's Julius Randle for sure. That's where I'd want to go. Taj Gibson is $3K min price. So if he starts and the other two are out, very tempting. It can lead to helping you get superstars in the lineup, and he can grab you 20 fantasy points, which at 3K is just fine. So I need that news, because if either one of Robinson or Noel are in, then that botches that entire plan. Let's see here. As far as on the Milwaukee side, Drew Holiday at 6'5" is a good play against the poor defensive backcourt of the Knicks. Other than that, Giannis is 12-3. I can't do it, man. I just can't. 12-3 is too much. I think DraftKings went bonkers with everybody just playing Giannis and Curry every day, and they said, go ahead and try to play those two guys today. You can't even make a lineup if you play those two. So I'm not going to go there at 12-3. If he scores 70, he scores 70. I'm going to try to, by playing him, you're going to have to take a guy in the mix, just face it, that could get 15. So why not feel more comfortable getting two guys that can get you 40 rather than, sweating out the bullets that Giannis is going to have a ceiling game, and then you have to get some Skabuji guy in there to have a crazy game. The guy that I do like is Bobby Portis. He's only 5'5". He's not getting priced up. He's getting big minutes. He's a stud, and I think he's a good play. I really do. I think he's my number one target with Holiday on the Milwaukee side. On the Knicks side, again, it all comes down to that Julius Randle possibility at 10-3, which is 2,000 less than Giannis. I think is much more fair, but we need the big man news. Not interested in that backcourt. All right, we go to the next game. It's an 8 p.m. game. It's the Dallas Mavericks at the Chicago Bulls. Chicago by 4, 215.5 total. Implied for Dallas, 105.75. For Chicago, 109.75. And in this game, we've got the Mavericks coming in at 7-3, and the Bulls are 7-3. So this should be a really entertaining matchup. Mavs are still without Maxi Kleber. He is out. And, of course, Kobe White, Patrick Williams remain out for Chicago. As far as pace goes, slow teams here. Dallas down to 27th. A lot of Luka dribbling the basketball. Chicago, believe it or not, is 22nd. You would think with those guards and DeRozan and stuff, they push the ball, but DeRozan is more of a half-court set, mid-range jumper guy, and they have Vuk. And Vuk's tough, man, and if they're going to set it up in a half-court setup, which they have been doing, that's why they're 22nd in pace. I think Vuk is super interesting. And then defensive efficiency scares me a little bit here. Dallas has moved up to 14th, so they're in the upper half. And the reason Chicago's 7-3 is they are 4th in the league defensively in efficiency as a team. So it does change things a little bit. Let's talk Luka first. We're at 11-4 for Luka. Again, I just think that's too high against a team that's playing good defense like Chicago. I think they can double them. I think Billy Donovan's a good coach. They're probably, going to make the ball get out of his hands as much as possible. So not going to go all the way up to Luka today. I don't see how you trust Kristaps. People still do. I know he has a good game here and there, but at 6'8", people are going to think, wow, he's sub 7. He can have a monster ceiling game. I just don't trust it. I mean, I know, this is a good situation for him in this matchup, but you got an undersized Javonte Green. Not sure who's going to guard him. They may bring Derek Jones Jr. off the bench when Dallas goes without Powell, and maybe brings Brunson in, maybe guard him with Vuk. So it does set up for a good play for Porzingis. I just don't trust him. And, he's not 100%. He's never 100%. Other than that, Brunson's all the way up to 6K now, and he's coming off the bench again, even though he's still been fantastic. So this is the second slate in a row that I'm passing on the Mavericks. I just don't feel it right now for them. The Bulls, on the other hand, I think there's some interesting plays here. I do like Vuk at the 8.8 salary. I think that is a bargain. I think that he can have a really good ceiling game. Everybody gets afraid with Chicago because they have so many weapons, but we know Dallas's interior defense is not good. And Vuk at that price, I think, is just a really good play. And he's going to be one of my targets today. After that, it gets a little pricey. You can really boom or bust with him. Levine is 7.6, which is cheap. I mean, he's tempting at that price. I think he's underpriced to be literally a mid-level guy that can get you big numbers. I've got a little bit of interest there. I really do. I think that DeRozan at 8.6 is a little expensive, and I think he'll get Dorian Finney-Smith defense, which is the best defender on the Mavericks. So for me, I may have to, Dirk, I'm sorry, I apologize, but I may have to be, DFS rooting for Chicago, because I could have two key pieces from the Bulls in this game in Levine and Vukovic. So we'll see how that rolls. All right, there's another 8 o'clock game. There's actually two more 8 o'clock games. First one is the Oklahoma City Thunder and the New Orleans Pelicans. New Orleans is 4.5-point favorite, 210.5 over under. You've got implied for Oklahoma City 103, Pelicans 107.5. As far as the records for these teams, Thunder 3-6, and Pelicans, the worst in the league, 1-10. Not what they were expecting. Trey Mann out for the Thunder, or questionable for the Thunder. Big deal, right? Ingram is the big news again. Questionable. We need to know if he's playing. Also, Herb Jones, questionable. That would help. And Cheeseburgers remains out, my buddy Zion. And I can say that because I like cheeseburgers too. All right. What do we have here in this game? Let's take a look at the pace. Oklahoma City 11th, the Pelicans 16th. So middle of the road. Defensively is where this game gets very spicy. Thunder 22nd, Pelicans dead last. They are 30th. So does this become a key game on the chart, on the board, on the slate, whatever you want to call it? And I think it does. First of all, like I said the other day, you can't really talk about the Pelicans unless you know Ingram's going to play or not. If Ingram plays without restriction, even at 8.7 coming off an injury, he's very, very playable because he could just blow up the Thunder. There's no doubt about it. If he doesn't play, then we need to know if Herb Jones is going to play, because he gets good minutes when he's out, and he could be your value guy of the day at 3.5 if he's healthy with no restrictions. After that, it's risk. Devontae Graham at 6'2", Nickeil Alexander-Walker at a fair 5'8". Josh Hart is probably the guy showing the most burst right now. He's only 5.2, and he can get it done. He rebounds. We all know that. And he's probably my favorite Pelican right now, but until that BI news comes down, it just can't solidify anything. On the Thunder side, Shea is a great play. It's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Did you know that they were cousins? The Alexander part of it, they are related. That's the truth. No kidding. But Shea is in a great spot here. He is a pricey 8.9, which is a little scary. But, man, he's hard to get away from here. His usage, they don't have the best matchup for him. I think Shea is in play at 8.9. A little bit, if he was like at 8.4 or 5, I'd feel way better, but I'm going to consider him. After that, you got a lot of risk. I mean, Dort, Giddy, Baisley, Robinson, Earl, Favors, Williams, Poku, Muscala, Maladone. They're all getting time, and they're all not very good. So it's Shea or bust for me on the Thunder side of the coin. All right, the last 8 o'clock game, as we continue to motor, no breaks. We're going to just gut this out. Memphis -5 against the Hornets. Hornets with this totals 227. So we have a winner right now for the highest total on the board. And it is this game, the Hornets and Grizzlies at 227. 111 implied for the Hornets and a big fat 116 for the Memphis Grizzlies. As far as their records, Hornets 5-7. They've been on a tough road trip. Grizzlies 6-4. Injuries. PJ Washington out for the Hornets. We do have a questionable tag on Dylan Brooks. We have not seen him this year, and he changes this entire game, like completely. If he plays, play the under in this game. I mean, he is the defensive nuts and bolts of this Memphis team. It's not even close, and they need him. They really need him in there. Let's see. Let's try that again. Zaire Williams. That's what I'm trying to say. He is questionable. So the Brooks news is very, very important. Here's some statistics, though, that make you understand why this game is the highest total on the board and has so much potential. You've got pace-wise, you've got Charlotte 3rd and Memphis 15th. And then defensive team efficiency, how about 29th and 28th? Two of the worst 3 defenses in the league. The reason Memphis is so bad is because Brooks has been out. So, again, we have to follow this news. If he plays, it shifts, like I say, everything on the board for me. Let's say he doesn't play because he hasn't played thus far. This is the first time he's been listed as questionable. John Morant at 9.9. That may be the choice between him and Shea in the last game, but 9.9 is expensive, but he has been phenomenal. He really has been phenomenal. He probably will get Terry Rozier defense, and that's a little scary. Terry can lock some people down, but Jaw's been otherworldly. I mean, he's an all-star. He's a superstar. He is the most improved player in the league to me. So I've got to consider him, especially if Brooks doesn't play. Because if Brooks plays, not only is he a defender, but he grabs usage. He was second on this team in usage last year, believe it or not, to Jaw. So we'll wait for that news. After that, Bane has been a consistent play for me because he's so cheap at $5K, but it's risky. Don't trust Jaren Jackson at 6-1. Steven Adams gets played off the court all the time, so I'm not even going to consider him. I think you'll have both of these teams go small, and that will really increase the score and the shot attempts and possession. So really it's Jaw if Dylan doesn't play. And then, if Dylan plays with no restrictions, possibly even him at 7-1, which is a risk, but it'll be super low owned. LaMelo Ball's all the way to 10K. Who thought LaMelo would get to 10K this quickly? That's a little bit too much to pay for me. I think he'll get Melton defense. Melton defense is pretty solid. Rozier at 6'3", he's been super risky, boomer bust kind of guy. I think this is a good spot for him. I'm definitely going to consider him at that discounted price. Gordon Hayward at 6'8" is fair. If Brooks plays, he's probably going to guard him, so I wouldn't go there. But if he doesn't, I think Hayward deserves at least a look. And then the only other guy I would consider from the Hornets is Miles Bridges. 8-1 is a lot. I know that he didn't get there for me the last time, but I think he'll play a lot of center. I think he and Jackson will be the centers when they play Plumlee and Adams off the floor. So I think you're going to get a ton of minutes from him. He obviously has a big ceiling this year. He's playing for a contract. He's a free agent after this year. So certainly could go there. He's expensive, but I think he'd be a really valuable play. I think that price keeps his ownership down a bit. All right. We go to the first 8:30 game of the night. It's Sacramento Kings and San Antonio Spurs. This is an interesting one, too. The two guys I don't trust. Luke Walton, the coach of the Kings, I think is the worst coach in the league. And Pop, who you never know what he's going to do, and he pops people all the time, and it definitely makes it scary. But here's the thing. San Antonio -1, it's a 220 total. So you've got probably a hotly contested game, a decent total. Both implied totals are good, 109.5 for Sacramento, 110.5 for San Antonio. So this is, if I play anybody from this game, I'm not going to watch it. And I watch every game because it's too nerve-wracking. I can't take Kings Spurs is the kind of game, you know, I don't have any hair to pull out, but if I did, this is probably the game that would do it. But there's a bunch of guys that are fairly priced here too. So it makes it very interesting. The Kings come in at 5-6. The Spurs are 3-7. Injuries, you've got Davis and Halliburton. Halliburton's the big piece of news. We know Davion Mitchell gets a ton of those minutes if Halliburton's out, but we do need the news. Davis is in their rotation too, so we need news on both of them. As far as the Spurs go, it looks like Keita Bates-Diop is probable. Collins and Pirtle being the big one, are out. So let's take a look statistically where these guys are at. As far as pace goes, the reason they have a 220 over-under, which is pretty high on this slate, they are 7th and 4th in pace, respectively. Sacramento 7th isn't a surprise with Fox, but the Spurs at 4? Are you kidding me? What is going on here? How are they playing that fast? I guess it's the DeJounte Murray, White, Johnson. They're pushing the ball and playing smaller is the only thing I can guess, which is makes you want to play Spurs, but it's always such a stomach ache when you do. Defensive efficiency, Sacramento 18th, San Antonio is 6th. So Pop, I mean, let's face it, he's probably the best NBA coach of all time, I would say. I have to, and I'm a massive Pat Riley fan, but the guy, the longevity, all those years making the playoffs 20 years in a row, seriously, all the things he's accomplished are just mind-boggling. And the fact that, you know, this team, really, when you look at the team, they're horrible. I think they're awful. But they're 3-7. So even though they're pushing the ball and they're playing decent defense, they're not showing up as wins, but that usually tells you that, you know, they're going to get it going. So I am concerned this game, and I will have some considerations. You've got Fox at 8-2. If Halliburton sits, Davion Mitchell at 4-6, and Buddy Hield at 6-3, to me, are much stronger plays. With those four guards rotating, if they're all in and all playing full, it gets a little bit tough because there is some sharing of the usage. Harrison Barnes has been a steady man all season, 7.5. I think it's fair for him, and he becomes an option in a game that could get up and down. DeJounte Murray, too expensive. Can't pay 9.7 for DeJounte. I know he can make that number, but I'm not going to risk it. White at 6'4", Lonnie Walker 3.8, Vassell at 4.5. I mean, it's a Pop kind of team. Keldon Johnson gets a lot of ownership, but he's 5'9". I've rolled the dice with Doug McDermott a few times, 3.9, and that did not go well. For me, it really comes down to, do I want to go back to the well with Drew Eubanks? I've played him ever since Pirtle went down. I know he's splitting minutes, and I'm not a timeshare guy. He's splitting minutes with Thad Young, but his price is still low. He made his number for me last time, and, you know, the sites where you can play two centers, or if he has any power forward eligibility anywhere, which I don't believe he does anymore, but we can check that. At 4.6, I'm still going to consider him. Thad Young at 5.8, a little bit too high to be a super value play, and I do think those guys are going to split minutes. So I'm not overly excited about that game, but the lines and the spreads and the trends tell you that you do need some exposure there. All right. Can't withstand not having another sip of coffee. All right. We go to a 9 o'clock game. First 9 o'clock game on the board. It is the Indiana Pacers at the Denver Nuggets. Indiana -3 at 210.5 over under, 106.75 implied for Indiana, 103.75 for the Denver Nuggets. And we need to find out what the deal is on the Joker. He is out for this game. So the shove in the back definitely has cost him some time. What is that going to do to this game? It's going to be very interesting. So Pacers are 4-7, Nuggets 6-4. We have for the Pacers, we have Jackson probable. We have Brogdon probable. So that's good that Malcolm Brogdon, we know, would be back. TJ Warren remains out. For Denver, this is going to be interesting. So we have Monte Morris as probable. Then we have Chanchar, the Joker, Murray, and Porter out. So how about bench time for Denver? Where this is where people are going to go for their value, no question about it, because all that usage has to be gobbled up by somebody. I wonder if you take Jay Green, if you get both of them. I want both Greens, Jeff and JaMychal, for the price of one, but I don't think they'll allow it. Anyway, let's get back to the statistics for this game, because this game is going to be pivotal. There's no question with all the Denver guys out. It's the first night of a back-to-back for Indiana. And I'll warn you, Rick Carlisle is spooky when it comes to back-to-backs. He doesn't like to overplay people. And so that takes a notch off the Indiana Pacers for me in this game. Pace, Indiana 14th, Denver only 26th. But again, that's, with Joker, without Joker, it's a completely different squad. Defensively, Indiana is only 19th. Denver is 3rd. So let's talk about Denver first, since that's the elephant in the room. The possible starting lineup, and we'll know that later. Right now, it's Monte Morris at 4-4, Will Barton at 6-3, Jeff Green at 3-4, Aaron Gordon at 5-2, JaMychal Green at 3-2. Then you've got PJ Dozier at 4-1, Bones Highland at 3-3. Those are really the 7 that I would consider here. So, if you can choose the 2 out of those 7 for Denver, they're going to smash their number, because somebody's going to smash their number from Denver here. I mean, you've got all value. The whole starting 7 or 8 guys are going to be super value. And I almost think you have to have 2 of them. I really do, because it's going to be there. Whether it's Barton at 6-3, Morris at 4-4, possibly. Does Aaron Gordon have it in him at 5-2 when they really need him? This could be his chance. I've always thought PJ Dozier was a really fine player at 4-1. I think he's a great play. I mean, you can go all the way down to a Bones if you want at 3-3, and a Jeff Green at 3-4. So, I mean, they're all in play. So that is going to be the big decision, I think, for if you want to take some stuff down in this card. If you can come out with the two of the value plays from Denver out of that top group, you're going to be in great shape. I know I'm going to be focusing in on doing that exact same thing, and it is going to give me the opportunity to multi-enter some guys that are a little high priced that I'm interested in, like the LaMelo Balls and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. So that's going to be a big focus for me. On the Indiana side, again, I'm afraid of Carlisle on the first night of a back-to-back, but you've got Brogdon, who's probable at 7-5. I mean, he's played terrific ball. Duarte at 5-2. The guy that I like, he's 7-5. I know he's expensive, but I love Karis LeVert, man. He is starting to turn on that switch. He's probably my number 1 target for Indiana. I don't want to get Carlisle'd. I mean, you almost have to say that, though. And it scares me a little bit, but I do like LeVert at that price. Sabonis at 10-2. I mean, without the Joker in there, it's, it could be a big game for him. 10-2 is a little pricey, but I'm going to consider him. I just didn't like the rotation that Carlisle used the other day. He kept him off the floor. I don't know if it was because Miles Turner was playing well. I know he was in foul trouble, but he wasn't finishing the game. And I was like, what in the heck are you doing? I think he was just trying to go with, who was hot. So I don't know. I don't think this game blows out. It's Indiana favored by 3. I know, Denver's super short-handed, and Indiana could get the upper hand. And if they do, and it's a back-to-back, you could get stung here. Turner's all the way up to 6'9". That's too high for me. And they have a litany of guys, McConnell, Holiday, Craig Lamb, all those guys off the bench, just not playable for me. All right. Another 9 o'clock game. Portland and the Suns. Yeah, this is a nice one too. Phoenix -5, 223 over under, 109 implied for Portland, 114 for Phoenix. So let's see what we've got here. We've got records in this game. Portland is 5-6. Phoenix is 6-3. No injuries reported for Portland. Shamet is probable for Phoenix. And then the 2 guys that are out are Ayton and Saric. So Ayton remains out in that mess. Portland, as far as pace, they're 12th. Phoenix 6th. So they do get up and down the floor. As far as defensive efficiency, Portland 23, which we knew they were not defending well. Phoenix is all the way up to 11. So they are improving game by game defensively. So that makes them, a little bit more worrisome on the defensive side. Lillard at 10-1 just has not been paying his price. He's not shooting well. His percentages are worst of his career. McCollum, they jacked up to 8-5. I can't believe how much they moved him. I think it was 7-2 yesterday. So that's a huge jump. Norman Powell looked good, but he's probably going to get Mikal Bridges' defense. He's 5'6". Covington, too risky at 4-3. Nurk had a great game, but the problem is this is the second night of a back-to-back for Portland. So Nurk doesn't have a tendency to get monster minutes on back-to-backs. They try to take care of him a little bit. So I'm not going to go there. With Phoenix's increased defense and just Portland on the second night of a back-to-back, I don't have a lot of interest on that side of the ball at all. Phoenix, on the other hand, I think, based on the pace of this game, which should be decent enough, it's a pace-up game. For Portland, it's 12th and Phoenix is 6th. So the pace for both teams is above average. So I think Phoenix, you can talk about Paul at 9K. And Devin Booker at 9.8. I think 9.8 is overpriced for Booker, though, to be honest with you. I'd more likely go to Paul, who's a little high priced too at 9K, but I think this is a perfect matchup for him. Mikal Bridges, same thing with Norman Powell, the Spider-Man thing there, in my opinion. I just don't want either one of them. Crowder, too risky. If you want to get into this on a 13-game slate, JaVale McGee's 4.2 and Frank Kaminsky's 5K. Everybody on earth is playing those 2 guys, one or the other, both, neither. It's been a free-for-all ever since the injury to Ayton. So, I don't want to get involved with that. I don't want that one of those 2 guys to bust my slate on a 13-game, slate. And I think there's plenty of value everywhere. I don't even have to need to push that. So I may pay up for a Paul at 9K. Not going to have as much exposure as I was hoping to here, but I do think Phoenix is starting to lock it down a bit, and Portland's coming in with more tired legs. I think the under in this game is a good play too, just not completely thrilled, and I think this game will garner quite a bit of ownership. All right, we have 2 games left, 11 down, 2 to go. Minnesota Timberwolves at the Golden State Warriors. It's a 10 o'clock game. Golden State favored by 7.5. 222 over under, 107.25 implied for Minnesota, 114.75 for the Warriors. As far as records go here, Minnesota 3-6. They've been in a lot of games, just not transporting over to the win section. Warriors, an incredible 9-1, which is quite a feat. A lot of it is because of the Magic Man Curry, no doubt about it. No injuries for Minnesota. Porter questionable for Golden State. Thompson and Wiseman remain out. Statistically here, Minnesota 10th fastest pace, Golden State 5th fastest pace. Those implied totals are very nice at 107, 114. I like that. Defensively, Minnesota 16th, so middle of the pack. Golden State remains the top defensive team in the league. Either, that's for sure. So how do we, what are we looking at here? There are definitely some playable commodities. The question is, you've got a situation where D'Angelo Russell at 7-1, Anthony Edwards at 8, I think are both guys you have to consider. I think their price is fair. They could both be higher priced than that. The guy that is super high priced is Cat at 10-7. Not, again, wanting to create a build where I don't have guys that I'm begging to get to 20 fantasy points. Probably not going to go Cat against a strong defense from Golden State at that big price. I will not play Malik Beasley again. He crushed my spirit and soul the last time out. He doesn't get in. He did, his shots weren't good. He's 4.5, so he's tempting because we know he has the ability, but he's dead to me. So goodbye, Malik. Other than that, they do use their bench a lot. Vanderbilt, Reed, Okogie, they're all getting minutes. So really, to me, it's about D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards. One or the other will probably make my lineup. I love Steph Curry. He's the best shooter in the history of the NBA, but I'm not paying 11-7 for him. I mean, he has to go out and make 14 threes, to pay that price, which that may happen in the first half for Curry. God knows. I think they'll put Pat Beverly on him and try to, slow him down. And there's no way I'm paying 11-7 for Curry. I don't care if he gets, if he gets 50 fantasy points, 55, he's still not at his number. And he has to deal with Pat Bev. So I'm not doing it. Jordan Poole at 6'3", I think is a better option. I really do. He's boom or bust, though. He can make you or break you. So it's a little riskier. Certainly a great GPP play. Andrew Wiggins, has not been the player he was last year offensively. He's been terrific on D. I mean, his improvement the last 2 years in defense is remarkable. He played 0 D when he played at Minnesota. Now he's an elite defender in the league. But offensively is what we care about in DFS, and he's just not quite there. Draymond at 6'7", price is fair enough. You always have to sweat out if he's going to get any real points, but, a consideration. I'll put it to you that way. Don't want to go down to Kevon Looney, Bielitsa, Iguodala, Porter, Peyton, Toscano Anderson. Those guys are all going to play, and their bench has really been solid, and they've been more solid defensively than anything else. So really, Poole's probably the play on that side of the ball. Definitely want exposure here with the Russell Edwards side as well. All right, somehow, some way we're at game 13, and I'm still standing or sitting, if you want to call it that. But we're there. We're at the precipice here. Miami Heat at the Los Angeles Lakers. Miami minus 4.5, 214.5 over under. Implied total for the Heat 109.5, for the Lakers 105. It's the first night of a back-to-back for Miami. They're on a road trip on the West Coast, so we'll see how that's going to roll. As far as records, Miami's a solid 7-3. The Lakers have clawed back to 6-5. Injuries galore here. I mean, they can't even fit on the page. For the Heat, probable is Martin and Strus. Questionable, sort of some big names here. A guy named Bam and a guy named the Hero. So Bam and Hero questionable, and PJ Tucker questionable. Out, we already know, is Morris from getting his spine snapped in half by the Joker, and Oladipo remains out. The Lakers, Anthony Davis probable, hooray. Reeves and Rondo questionable. We already know the guys that are out: Ariza, Horton Tucker, James, and Nunn. So at least we don't have to sweat on the Lakers side like we normally do as far as news. Now we have to sweat on the Miami side in this game because, if Bam and Hero play, it changes the entire landscape. So we can only give somewhat of a review here for this game, but you have that Minnesota Golden State game also at 10. So set up your pivots. The late pivots make a big difference in this NBA. You've got to do it, like Herter playing last night because both guys Atlanta ruled out. Stuff like that makes slate changing difference, and it helped us yesterday get to a 351.5, I believe was our total in our hybrid on FanDuel. So that's what you got to watch here. So you can set it up in that pivot spot if you're on on DraftKings. You get somebody in there where you can make. There's lots of strong players on both of these teams. So if you want to put in Bam, for example, and you'll be able to do a late swap to whomever, whether it be AD or Cat, or you can make it work. Just plan that in advance because it may take place in this game. All right, as far as pace, this is a little concern for the Lakers plays here. Miami's 28, so third slowest team. They always are. They play just good D and limit possessions, which doesn't make you happy as a DFS owner. Lakers are first, though. So huge pace up game for Miami. That makes you excited on rostering Miami guys. But defensively, we've got some issues here. Miami's fifth, and the Lakers are now 15th, right in the middle of the pack. So you're going to have some decent defense to deal with. As far as playable guys, the guy that I'm really, really angry at is Kyle Lowry. I was sitting so pretty the other night. The dude played 37 minutes, I believe. Guess how many real points he had in that game? Go ahead, say your guess. No, it was 0. 0. How can Kyle Lowry play mid-30s minutes and not have a basket or a foul shot? I don't understand. So at 7-7, he joins the "you're dead to me" squad for a while here until I get any confidence back in him. He'll also probably get some Avery Bradley defense. Other than that, I think Jimmy Butler at 9-6, he's played fantastic. If Bam doesn't play, there's going to be and Hero. If they both sit, Butler's got to be a plug and play. He's going to be my top owned player on the slate if Hero and Bam sit, because his usage is just going to explode. If Bam sits, you can also consider Dwayne Dedmon. He may get some of those minutes and slide in to that starting lineup at 3-2, which could give you your big bonus value guy. And then, after that, though, we just need to see the news. Hero would be a great play, too, if he gets in this matchup. But I think, you can definitely consider some guys there. On the Lakers side, I think Russ at 11-3 is just too expensive. He can smash it. He'll probably get a triple-double without, very possible. But a triple-double doesn't mean you're going to pay off your 11-3 salary either. So I'm just not going to go there at that higher price. I'd be more apt to go Anthony Davis, but only if Bam sits. If Bam plays, then I won't go with Davis. If Bam sits, that could be my other pay-up spot on the slate, being AD. After that, just too much volatility from the Lakers side. Not interested in going there. So that is it, my friends. No breaks in between. 13 up, 13 down. We're going to crush this slate. We absolutely relish these slates of all of these 10-plus games and having 13 tonight. We're ready to just clean it up. So give us a try. If you're watching this on YouTube and you survived the whole thing, thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening in. And we will be back again tomorrow when we look to crush it in NBA DFS.